We'll turn the microphone on and bring the meeting to order. Welcome to our meeting of the regular board meeting of the Princeton School Board, Tuesday, January 22nd, 2019. As required under the Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice was given for calling this meeting. It was authorized by the Board of Education and forwarded to the municipal clerk, Princeton Packet, and the Trenton Times on January 10th, 2019, and distributed to the schools and others on the standard distribution list. The board reserves the right to enter into executive session during all meetings of the Board of Education. Board Policy 2230, recording devices, requires that we inform those attending this meeting that the proceedings are being recorded on video. This meeting is being video recorded and may also be live streamed. Would you like to call the roll, please, Superintendent or Business Administrator Kennedy?
Beth Barron.
Here.
Greg Stankiewicz.
Here.
Betsy Baglio.
Here.
Debbie Bromfeld.
Here.
Daniel Dart.
Here.
Jessica Deutsch.
Here.
Bill Hare.
Here.
Brian McDonald.
Present.
Michelle Tuck Ponder.
Present.
Evelyn Spahn.
Here.
Sam Harshbarger. Absent. Allie Rounds.
Present.
Thank you.
So we move on to the adoption of the minutes. Can I have a motion for the adoption of minutes, item D1, from December 18th, 2018? Jess Deutsch? Betsy Baglio? Is there any discussion? Sorry, did you say the second? Betsy? So if there's no discussion, should we take a vote? All in favor? Can you raise your hand?
So I'm abstaining because we weren't here for the December meeting.
December 18th. You weren't here. Okay. All right. Should we do that one more time? Let's have a show of hands, please. Motion passed. Can I have a motion to adopt the item number D2, adoption of minutes from January 3rd, 2019? Michelle? Second? Brian? You want mine?
Now I'm on to January 3rd, and who first?
Michelle is the first, and Brian. If there's no discussion, any discussion? All in favor of the minutes? Show of hands.
I need to abstain.
Yep, Debbie's abstaining, was not there. Okay, motion passed. Item 3, adoption of minutes from January 5th, 2019. Can I have a motion? Jess? Second? Michelle? Any discussion? All in favor of, by a show of hands? You got it?
Yes, but
Debbie's abstaining.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll move on to the board president's report. Welcome to the new year. Welcome to our new board members, and welcome to new opportunities for us to improve the daily experience of the almost 4,000 children under our care in the Princeton Public Schools. David Brooks recently wrote in the New York Times about the essential connection between emotional relationships and learning. He noted that neuroscience supports the idea that a key job of a school is to give students new things to love, and how in an ideal world, learning happens when teachers share their contagious passion for their subjects and students, and children encounter adults that offer care for the whole person. This article reminded me of the mission of the Princeton Public Schools, where we prepare our students for lives of joy and purpose and strive to instill in them a lifelong love of learning and focus on wellness and knowing and supporting every child. As a board, we are responsible for the vision, planning, communication, and oversight around the implementation of this mission. It's an honor and a privilege to undertake this work with the highly qualified, passionate people around this table, and I'm excited for the year ahead. Here's a brief update on where we are so far this year in 2019. At our January 3rd reorganization meeting, we were joined by newly elected members Daniel Dart and Brian McDonald, and welcomed back Betsy Calber-Baglio for a second 3-year term. For the 2019 board year, the board elected me as president and Greg Stankiewicz as vice president. Much of our board work is done through standing committees, which can take no official action but make recommendations to the full board. Our 2019 committee chairs are, for Equity, Michelle Tuck-Ponder; for Facilities, Greg Stankiewicz; for Finance, Bill Hare; Personnel, Debbie Braunfeld; Policy, Jess Deutsch and Greg Stankiewicz are co-chairing; and Student Achievement, Betsy Calber-Baglio. And I direct you to our board agenda where the full committees are listed. Thank you to all of you committee chairs for your leadership. As a board, we are taking advantage of training resources of the New Jersey School Board Association to enhance our governance. Our new members attended a full weekend of required board training earlier this month, and as a full board, we spent a morning focusing on communication amongst ourselves, with administrators, and the public. This training work, which will continue later this evening, is being facilitated at no cost by Jesse Adams, our New Jersey School Board Association field representative. We have scheduled additional retreats with Jesse on topics of effective committees and goal setting to happen in the next few months. We hope that these sessions will help us become more strategic, efficient, and impactful in our board work. In an effort to increase collaboration with the municipality of Princeton, we are initiating regular meetings between municipal and board leadership beginning next month to discuss matters of mutual concern. And we are continuing work on shared services with the help of an outside consultant to find financial savings and efficiencies. We appreciate the community's willingness to invest in the future of our public schools through the referendum projects approved in December. We intend to implement these projects with transparency and care, with assistance from our team of professional advisors and input from stakeholders and community experts. We are pleased to share that on January 9th, we engaged in a highly successful bond sale, selling $26.9 million in 20-year bonds at an interest rate of 2.99%. This rate is lower than the rate forecast by our advisors in December and will result in a total cost of financing that is over $1 million less than the December estimate. When the bond sale closes tomorrow, the bond proceeds will be temporarily deposited in an interest-bearing money market account at the Bank of Princeton and then invested in short-term instruments such as CDs and Treasury bills until the board selects an investment management firm at our February 26 meeting. The board intends to select an investment firm that offers the most favorable long-term investment strategy for the proceeds. The management of bond proceeds is highly regulated, and all accounts and investment instruments into which the funds will be deposited will be insured through the State of New Jersey Governmental Unit Deposit Protection Act, held in a regulated trust or used to purchase government securities. In a public meeting this morning, our Facilities Committee met with our architects, legal counsel, and proposed engineering firm to discuss status and next steps on referendum project implementation, including the process by which we hire a construction manager to assist the board in its oversight responsibilities. As a first step, the committee recommended that the board approve the contract for civil engineering services that is on today's agenda. The committee is also considering the appropriate ways to involve and inform the community in and about project implementation moving forward. With respect to long-range planning for facilities projects not included in the December referendum, we look forward to engaging in a collaborative planning effort with the community in the months ahead to revisit and clarify the need for expanded and updated school facilities, including issues around demographics, capacity, design, and cost. We are taking time to carefully consider next steps and hope to have more to share on this process in the weeks ahead. Thanks to those here tonight and to those watching remotely for your interest and engagement in our public schools and the work of this Board of Education. Thank you. Now we have the superintendent's report.
All right. Thank you, President Barron.
No? Oh, sorry. Oh, I forgot one thing. Let's back up 1 second. Item 2.
Introduction of the person to your left.
I'm introducing our council. With us today we have Frank Cavallo from our outside board council.
Parker McKay.
Parker McKay. And where else am I? I'm sorry, I'm lost.
And then now you have item 4. That's the first, second, and roll call vote. For the,
Okay.
Aha.
Aha.
Superintendent's report.
Yes, so item 4 on our agenda is the payment of the 2017-18 merit goals achieved by the superintendent. Can I have a, do we want to, I need a first and a second on that.
Yes. Questions?
Yeah, I'd like, okay, well, first, Betsy. Second, Greg. And do we have any discussion? I'd just like to note what this is. Under Superintendent Cochran's contract, we have a provision for merit pay, which we looked at last year as a board and concluded that he had met the criteria, which was then submitted to the county superintendent's office for approval, which we received back, and now we are accepting that approval so that we can disperse the payment.
That's correct.
So is there any questions or?
December 18th, the board accepted the.
On December 18th,
achievement of the goals.
we accepted the achievement of the goals. Thank you. So if there's no further discussion, could we have I guess we need a roll call vote. Yep.
Okay. Beth Barron,
Yes.
Debbie Bromfeld,
Yes.
Daniel Dart,
Yes.
Jessica Deutsch,
Yes.
Bill Hare,
Yes.
Betsy Calver-Baglio, Brian McDonald,
Yes.
Greg Stankiewicz,
Yes.
Michelle Tuck Ponder,
Yes.
and Evelyn Spahn.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion passes. And now, it's time for the superintendent's
Okay,
report.
all right. Thank you, Beth. Good evening, everyone. Thank you to those members of the public who are here tonight and to everyone watching at home. I want to build on Beth's comments by beginning this new year with a message of hope. And it's a message that is inspired by a landmark report that was released last week. It's a message that is inspired by an assembly held last Friday in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and it's a message inspired by the anniversary of Mr. Lucker's 50th year of teaching at Princeton High School. So last week, the National Commission on Social, Emotional, and Academic Development issued a landmark report entitled From a Nation at Risk to a Nation at Hope. And the report was actually 2 years in the making. It drew on the input of more than 200 scientists, psychologists, researchers, educators, youth, parents, and policymakers. And essentially, this report underscores the premise that students learn best when they feel known, cared about, supported, and challenged. The report is, in my belief, an affirmation of all of our strategic goals, which are connected by the simple theme: relationships matter. Relationships matter whether we are focused on wellness, or on knowing every child, or on closing the achievement gap, or on innovating our instruction, or on creating a community of connection and care. And as the report points out, it's a mistake to view social and emotional learning as a soft approach to education. Quite the opposite. An emphasis on these capacities is not the sacrifice of rigor, but the source of rigor. You cannot separate building scholarship from building character, stated 7th grader Pristina Gashi, who was on stage for the debut of this landmark report. Success in school should not be defined just by our test scores, another student stated, but also by the ability to think for ourselves, work with others, and contribute to our communities. I believe we are on the right path with all that we are attempting to do in the Princeton Public Schools. From responsive classroom, to positive psychology, to service learning, to restorative justice, we are attempting to build both scholarship and character. I would hope that Dr. Martin Luther King would be proud of our efforts, as he once defined the true goal of education as intelligence plus character. I know he would be proud of the students who gathered last Friday at JW Middle School for an assembly honoring his legacy. He would have been proud of them when he heard them sing the spiritual, "Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. Keep on walking, keep on talking, gonna build a brand new world." He would have been proud of them as they stood together to recite Maya Angelou's poem, "Life Doesn't Frighten Me at All." And he would have been proud of them as they listened to the Reverend Gilbert Caldwell who had the distinction of walking and talking and preaching with Dr. King. Reverend Caldwell focused on what he considers the most critical quote from Dr. King: "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." The civil rights movement, he explained to our students, was not just about racial injustice, but about injustice on the basis of gender, religion, or any other aspect of our humanity. He called on our students to stand up to bullying in all its forms, and I believe they heard him. I would really just like to thank Jason Burr, Joanne Parker, and Tommy Parker for making sure our students had the opportunity to experience the power and the hope that the words and the life of Dr. King continue to inspire. And finally, some comments about Jeff Lucker Day at Princeton High School. So last Friday, January 18th, 2019, marked 50 years that Mr. Lucker has been a teacher at Princeton High School. Now, Jeff is a very humble man, so I'm sure he simply wanted to spend the day teaching in his classroom. However, his students and his colleagues would not let him get away with it that easily. So they decorated his room, they wore buttons in his honor, they made regular announcements about the various things that took place in the decades in which he'd been a teacher at Princeton High School, and then they celebrated him with an assembly. And I had the honor to be present with Jeff during that assembly. He got a proclamation from the mayor. We gave him a proclamation and some gifts. But I wanted to share a few words about Mr. Lucker tonight. Being a mediocre teacher is not that hard. Being a great teacher is the hardest job in the world. Being a great teacher for 50 years, yeah, it's just incredible. It means caring deeply about half a century of students. It means constantly learning and relearning about a complex and always changing world and the people in it, and that's particularly relevant for Jeff because he's a teacher of world history, and the curriculum has changed so radically in the last 50 years. It means advocating and agitating for the system to always improve. So we got buttons for Jeff Lucker Day. I still have mine. There was a phrase on the button that I got. I'm assuming it was on everybody's. And it said, quote, "Up the establishment." Now, Jeff told me, "Mr. Cochran, I actually never used that phrase." But in fact, it was taken from the 1969 yearbook quote that Jeff made. So I explained to the students at the assembly that "up the establishment" was just sort of a late 60s way of saying that we should never settle for the status quo, that things always need to improve, and you need to look for the system to improve. And Jeff has always done that. He's done that by saying, well, maybe AP World doesn't need to be an AP course. Maybe we can remove the AP status and call it something else and go deeper into learning. He's never stopped trying to change his teaching or change the system in which he is teaching. And I think the way he has most profoundly changed the system is by inspiring others to go into teaching. And Jeff told stories about the colleagues, some of whom were there at the assembly, who had been in his class and then had gone on to be teachers. And I took an opportunity, standing in front of the students who were there, to talk to them about teaching and to try and inspire them to follow in Jeff's footsteps, because teaching may be the hardest job in the world, but it is truly the most rewarding and, in my mind, the most important. And Jeff inspires that in all of us. Now, Jeff stood up to speak at the assembly, and he said a number of things. And there were people there, so you may want to help me recollect. But he commented on how some of his colleagues had mentioned to him that, Jeff, you've been doing this for 50 years. If you do the math, you actually are working for nothing. It's their phrase, because the pension that he would receive if he retired would be so high. Jeff, he paused and reflected on that, and he said, "Fortunately, I'm not good in math. But even if I were, I'm not working for nothing. I'm working for students." And he went on to reflect on how students had changed over the 50 years. And he said it's hard to do because the change is, each year it's so incremental. But if I really had to make a statement, I would say the students today are just as smart, but a whole lot kinder. That gave me hope. It gave me hope that maybe we're all doing something right with our kids. In a world that can be so divisive, it gave me hope that maybe we're graduating them into a world in which they can make it even better. And so I wanted to begin with a message of hope and about our students and about our teaching and the work that we're doing in our schools. So thank you.
Thank you. That's wonderful. And as a parent who is so fortunate to have a student in one of Mr. Lucker's classes, my daughter actually has him. I mean, we are all so fortunate in this district. So thank you.
Yeah.
I think we're moving on now to...
I think the calendar, is the calendar next on mine?
Yes, it
okay.
is.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, item F2,
Yes.
calendar.
So, gentlemen, are you able to pull up the calendar?
We need a first and a second.
Can we have a first motion? Thank you. Second? Brian? Okay, let's discuss it. Brian?
All right, so, well, I can...
We're discussing it.
Yeah, I can say just a few things about the calendar. Actually, just sort of 5 things I want to point out. No surprise to the board because it hasn't changed since our last read. The first thing is that the first day of school for students is after Labor Day, but we are having 3 professional development days prior to the start of school. Typically, it's been just 2 days, and 2 of those days then are in August, and 1 of those days is right after Labor Day, but before the start of the school. And we hope those 3 days will be an opportunity to front load some of our professional development, to have an opportunity for our teachers to connect with each other and with students, and to do a lot of the work that they need to do to prepare for the start of the school year that's 180 days long. So that's one important change. The other change I would highlight is that conferences, can you go back up to October? Yeah, stop right there. That's good. So conferences have been moved out of November into the end of October, which, point number 3, frees up October. So we actually have 2 full weeks of teaching in a month that has been traditionally, in November, sorry, frees up November. 2 full weeks of teaching and learning in November in a month that's been traditionally chopped up. The other change is on Election Day, November 5th. We will be off that day, or for students we'll be off. We'll have professional development on that day. So during the election, there will not be students in the school. And then the final point that I would make is in June. If you can scroll, yeah, right there. So June 2nd is primary election day. And so we have taken that as a professional development day as well, with schools closed on primary election day. And the final day of the year will be June 16th because we will not have any snow next year.
Great.
Right. Okay.
Thank you very much. Can I...
Wait, may I comment on the calendar?
Sure.
So I'm glad we're closed November 5th and June 2nd for elections, so our students will be safe. But I'm sorry that we still can't have discussions with local and state elections on ways to departments on ways to figure out how to keep elections out of our schools. We're coming up on a year anniversary for Parkland, and it's hard. It's hard to think that this is what we have to do. We have to close school, and I would love to work more. I'm trying to figure out a way where we can vote other places, but at least have the parties come together and do some real creative talking. But I am glad that we're closed for the safety of our students.
Thank you, Debbie. Is there any other comments?
I would just say thank you to all of the board and to the members of the public who at student achievement meetings have given us feedback, to our staff who've worked on at least 1,000 drafts, I think, of this calendar. But I think
And
what
to
we,
the PREA leadership, the
thank
teacher
you,
leadership.
Steve. Yes, we actually had a closed session of student achievement last year for the first time that I can remember with PREA leadership to speak with them together about the calendar. And I'd love to see that going forward as well, to do that first draft together. But this is an example of how our district is putting students first and considering the needs of our teachers as well. And I look forward to starting the next calendar, maybe even in student achievement on Friday. So stay tuned.
Okay.
Thank you all.
And thank you, Betsy, for all your work on driving this forward, because we all know you've been working really hard to keep this moving and to get this done. Anything else? We have a vote, show of hands, to approve the calendar. Okay. Thank you. Motion passed? No. Okay. I think then we are on to, so the next item is the harassment, intimidation, and bullying, but that's in a consent item, so we will be addressing that later when we do all the consents. And now we're on to board committee reports. And I think that the first report will come from, it would come from on equity. Michelle Tuck-Ponder, do you have anything to? Oh. Oh, I'm skipping the students. I'm sorry. It's my first day. So forgive me. I'm eager. I'm rushing ahead. So we would love to hear from our students. Thank you.
Unfortunately, my partner Sam couldn't be here tonight, so I'm just speaking for the both of us. For our 5th student liaison report, Sam and I surveyed students on their homework load this year relative to last. We asked students about the amount of time they spend on homework, the quality of the assignments they receive, and their suggestions for how it might improve. A total of 135 students were surveyed with an overall representation of upperclassmen relative to underclassmen sampled. As per usual, all of our students survey responded through a voluntary online Google survey posted in grade-specific Facebook groups. Of the students surveyed, 62.2% said they have more homework this year relative to last, while 23% say their homework load has decreased and 15% say it has remained the same. This should be taken with some caution, as we have no means to correct for the students' perceptions of increasing homework that result from the new demands of each successive grade in school. The median student in our sample spends between 2 and 4 hours each night on homework. Of the students sampled, 16% said they did less than 2 hours per day of homework, 43% said they did between 2 and 4 hours of homework per day, and 30% said they did between 4 and 6 hours of homework per day.
What was that last?
What was the
30%?
It was 30% for 4 and 6 hours a day. Around 10% reported doing more than 8 hours of homework per night. As to the quality of homework assigned, students are ambivalent. Approximately 25% say their homework is more meaningful and helpful than last year, compared to 30% of students who said it was less meaningful and helpful than last year. Around 46% said they saw no significant change in the quality of their homework assignments over the past year. And we also surveyed the math homework policy, which I believe all of you are familiar with. And on this homework policy, students tended to be more positive. 44% of students said changes in the math department homework policy since last year have decreased their stress, while 36% said it had no effect, and only 20% said it had increased their stress. In the process of surveying students, we collected input on how PHS's homework policies can be improved. Many students suggested that the improvements made in the math department's homework policy should be expanded to other departments. Additionally, some complained about the overassignment of homework tasks for the second day in school after a homework-free weekend. For next month, we are looking to survey students on their attitudes towards AP classes. We look forward to working with you all in the new year. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
Allie, can you just give us a breakdown of, do you have a breakdown of 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th graders?
I don't have it up right now, but I can get that.
I'm wondering if we can get a
Did
copy.
you share the sample
that.
size? Do you know how many?
It was
students?
only 135 students this time.
Thank you.
We're trying to find a way to collect more.
Helpful.
And what was the percentage, 2 to 4 hours of homework per night?
That was 43%.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, I think we're on to committees now, and I think we'll start with equity. Michelle Tuck-Ponder, thank you.
Sure. The Equity Committee has not met yet. We are transitioning, hopefully smoothly. I've reached out to Betsy, and we've had some conversations about making sure that we pick up issues that the committee started working on and that we continue working on them in the coming year. Annie and I are going to be meeting to talk about some issues and concerns that she has on her plate. One of the things that's really important to me is that we broaden our perspective of what constitutes equity. For example, I voted against the school calendar, not because I don't appreciate the work that people put into it, but I know that every time you close school, it impacts working parents. And so when we think about trying to balance all the issues that we have around safety in our school and where should people vote and all those things, there's a lot of other equity issues that factor into that as well. So I just wanted to explain why I voted against it. The other change that we're going to make, and again, to increase accessibility, is to have our meetings in the evening. A lot of people, again, work or have other obligations during the day, and they can't make meetings that are at 8:45 or 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock on a Tuesday or a Thursday. So if we have meetings in the evening, again, we may not have more people attend, but the idea that you can attend and they're accessible to more people is something that we're aiming for. I'm also interested in exploring having community members actually be members of our committee. And again, I don't know, Frank, if that's something that is legal, allowed, or illegal, but the municipality has a number of different boards and commissions that have residents serve who are appointed to those committees, and they actually deliberate and research and think about issues and are involved and engaged. And I think that this school board could benefit from more community involvement in that way. So hopefully we'll have a chance to deliberate and talk about that over the course of the year.
Thank you. Facilities, Greg?
Good evening, everyone. The Facilities Committee met for the first time in 2019 this morning. Thank you, Ms. President, for the summary that you gave this morning.
Steal your thunder.
That's fine. So it was a very good meeting, in my mind at least, because it brought together the new members of the committee, along with the professionals and the who are around the table here, and the professionals we work with, including our for this morning our construction council, a representative from our engineering firm, our architect, our project manager from the architectural firm. And the idea is for us to establish a good working relationship among all of us as we move forward over the next 2 years. So I want to thank all the members of the Facilities Committee who are going to be serving. And our next meeting is, February 19th, the next meeting of the committee itself, and then the committee will also be, committee members will be serving on the evaluation committee for for the construction manager project. And we have an issue on the agenda today we'll talk about later on.
Okay.
So thank you.
All right, Finance, Bill Hare?
Usually I'm still out, I don't need it. But the Finance Committee met today for its first meeting in 2019, right after Facilities, with basically the same people. Just different outside people came in and joined us. So we reviewed the bills, the financial reports. Going forward, our meetings will be held from 2 to 4 p.m. on the Mondays prior to the regular board meetings. So in the meeting today, we spent some time discussing what we would like to accomplish this year on finance beyond our regular duties. And some of the topics that were raised, I think, are worth throwing out and people to hear. You know, we'd like to analyze our programs to better understand the costs associated with each program. We'd like to provide a clear presentation of the school budget to the community. We'd like to seek improvements in how we interface with the community about the school budget. And we'd like to examine whether our school budget is affordable to the community. And we'd like to continue our attempts to reduce healthcare costs and hopefully balance the budget. We also discussed how we are going to invest the bond proceeds that Stephanie raised for us at 2.99% during the periods when it is not being spent. And we'll be voting on a request for proposals on that this evening. We also discussed the proposed budget, which is looking tighter and tighter. And we will be spending a significant amount of time on that budget over the next 2 to 3 months. Today's meeting, by the way, there were 3, I believe, members from the public there that were there. This meeting's open, so please, the public is more than welcome, although we probably will need to work better on how we interact with them during the meeting. The next one will be on February 25th at 2 p.m. in this building. And I believe we're going to try to schedule another pre-budget meeting on February 18th, I think is what we want to see if we can get.
That might be closed, though.
Okay, that might be closed.
The budget workshop is open on the 19th.
Okay, so, but the Finance Committee will talk about that in advance to see if everybody's available on the 18th at 2 p.m. Can I throw out one more committee that I'm on while I'm talking and I'm on a roll? The Bill Committee.
Oh, sure, yeah,
So
thank you.
Bill committee.
Which, different bill. A very different bill. Bill Cirillo. So we met, I guess, last week at Riverside, discussed the Riverside Courtyard project. As you know, we're trying to improve the courtyard and memorial to Bill Cirillo. Some progress has been made over the holidays. The facilities came out and removed the old wooden structure that was rotted and unsafe. So that saved us quite a bit that we would have to spend outside on someone. And we're examining moving from a wooden or synthetic platform to a stone, brick, or paver surface with separate structures for the turtles to burrow under. So it's moving forward. Goal is in April, it'll be done.
Thank you. Personnel, Debbie Bronfeld?
The Personnel Committee met on Friday, January 18th. The committee heard a residency appeal and determined that the child is not entitled to a free education in Princeton. The committee's recommendation to remove the student from the Princeton Public Schools is on the agenda tonight. The committee continued to discuss the residency audit of the Princeton Charter School students, which is being performed in student services. Currently, there are 28 families representing 36 students at Princeton Charter School that still need to verify their current residence. This is critical in order for the correct district to budget for the students for the 2019-2020 school year. A student can still attend the charter school even if they live in a different district. The district they live in would be the district that pays tuition to the charter school. Going forward, all registration for Princeton Charter School students will be performed at Valley Road in the Student Service Department. And pre-K and K registration for 2019-2020 school year for Princeton Public Schools will also be done at Valley Road. 1st through 5th grade will still be done at the elementary schools. The Princeton Charter School will begin to report their attendance numbers every Friday to Student Services to ensure we have the same head count. The negotiation team and the PREA leadership agreed to meet again in the fall of 2019 to begin discussions on the contract that ends in June 30th, 2020. And PRE leadership and some of its members will attend a health savings account presentation this month. Tonight, the board will be approving the employment of Judy Bronston as the Interim Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources and Public Information and Community Relations from February 1st through March 31st, 2019. This is to cover the time between Lou leaving and the hiring of his replacement. The Sick Leave Bank Committee received 4 sick leave requests totaling 120 days that were all approved in January 2019. This is the most days the Sick Leave Bank Committee has ever approved. To receive sick leave days, an employee submits a request. The maximum is 30 days per request. The Sick Leave Bank Committee, comprised of the superintendent, head of HR, a board member, and a union rep from each union, reviews each case individually based on the number of days available, the need, and the number of requests. The Sick Leave Bank started the year with 242 days. After approving 120 days, we have a balance of 122 days. The committee has requested we have another open donation period next month, and the committee also agreed going forward to have in October and February open donation days for the employees. The committee was informed that the district will be recommending a renewal of the contract with Penn Medicine Princeton Health for July 1st, 2019 to June 30th, 2020. The Confidential Employee Advisory Program provides confidential employee counseling services for all staff members and their immediate family. The confidential service can be used for mental health, marital issues, substance abuse, and family loss. The resolution is on the agenda tonight. There are 3 district-wide searches going on. The search for a new assistant superintendent for HR occurred on January 9th. 2 finalists were presented to Steve, and we are waiting for a final recommendation this month. The high school principal search committee will meet on January 30th. A search committee and date for the business administrator position will occur in the spring. Thursday, January 17th, a mid-year new hire orientation took place for those staff members who joined the district after the start of the year. 12 new employees attended. The committee determined its meetings for 2019, and our next meeting is Monday, February 28th at 8:45. And one final thank you for Lou, because it's his last meeting. It's been a pleasure working with you in personnel. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. All right. Lou? We'll move on now to policy. Greg Stankiewicz and Jess Deutsch.
And for this month, I'll take the lead. And I just wanted to say on behalf of Jess and myself that we really appreciate the new members on the policy committee, and we also really appreciate our previous year's members. Some of the actions that are going to be taken tonight represent work that was done by last year's policy committee. And so when we get to that point, I'll take just a couple of seconds to walk through what was done by whom as we get up to speed. For the new policy committee, the new policy committee's first organizational meeting will be at 8:30 in the morning on Friday, February 1st. And we'll have more to report after that. So.
Thank you, Greg. And now we have student achievements. Betsy, please.
Thank you very much. The Student Achievement Committee has not yet met this year either. We're meeting Friday morning at 11:30 in this room. We invite the public, as always, to attend our open meetings. This meeting is open to the public. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all. I think we're now moving on to our public forum, and tonight we're doing it just a little bit differently because we're trying to do some training amongst ourselves at the end of the meeting. So we're going to have first comment on agenda items, followed by second comments on open items. So I think that I have a sign-up list here with 2 names on it for the agenda items only, and we ask that people keep their remarks to 3 minutes max. Even though we're not as crowded as we normally are, we really do have a lot to cover on our agenda for tonight. So the first person is Kip Cherry.
I have a question. I want to talk about the CM. Is that on your agenda? Okay.
No, it's not.
I didn't see it on there.
I'm sorry. No.
And the only other person is Mr. Montgomery, who's on the agenda items, and perhaps if you would like to cede to Kip, she could then speak on an open item.
I didn't know there were 2 sign-ups. I'm on the open.
Well, there's only 2 of you, so would you like to make a comment?
A thing on the policies to talk about too, so maybe that is an agenda item.
Please, go ahead.
Okay. So, Kip Cherry, 24 Dempsey. What I want to talk about is the construction manager and the scope of work that's in the RFP, because I think that it's very lacking, and I'm concerned about it. And I also think it points out some shortcomings and concerns that I have, and that you should have too. First of all, in order to have this referendum do really well, we want to make sure that we minimize change orders. That's the bottom line. And if we minimize change orders, that means that we have a good narrative program in writing. It means we have good construction cost estimates. It means we have good design and construction schedule. It means we have good plans and specs, and it means we have a good construction manager. And if all those things fall into place, everybody should be just happy, happy, happy about everything that is the result. If those things don't work that well, then we will probably have some problems, and we'll have change orders. And change orders lead to cost overruns or additional costs that you hadn't planned on. And that's the real problem with change orders. And also it leads to disappointment and a lot of problems. So we should be aiming for 0 change orders, quite frankly, and I think it is doable, although not the way we have it set up. Secondly, the program, the narrative program, which we don't have in place, but I'm hoping that we can get it in place by doing it in pieces, which is not the ideal, but still in all. Before any design takes place, there should be a written narrative program on that particular space or system that's being designed, whether it be HVAC, security, classroom space, guidance area, whatever. It needs to be described in detail what should be in that space. For instance, for the guidance space, you want to know about how the space is going to be used. You want to know what kind of storage requirements there are, lighting, temperature and humidity control, sound control, security. There are a lot of issues in a space before the architect begins the design. And if he doesn't know all that stuff, he or she, then often things are not coming through quite right. Thirdly, I'm concerned about the scope of work for the CM and that it's too limited. And I think that maybe some of those things that I'm concerned about could be done by somebody else, but somebody's got to do them, is what I'm saying. Basically, in the first phase, the CM is required to do a constructability review. And it defines a constructability review as looking at the plans and specs for accuracy, completeness, and suitability. It doesn't say anything about comparing it to the written program narrative, which I think is extremely important to have in place, and which I think was missing a few years back when we had some issues, or was missing in its detail. And we need to have cost estimates. And right now, we don't have a cost estimate for anything. We have a budget estimate. And the architects have been very clear about that a budget estimate is essentially what I would call a guesstimate as to how much something is going to cost. It is not done by a certified cost estimator with experience in cost estimating. So I just want to make that very clear. Secondly, the CM is required to do a project budget summary. And a project budget summary, you see in that, not the word cost estimate. So project budget summary, what does that sign say?
30 seconds.
I'll try to finish up very quickly. I feel that the CM is not going to be doing the job. Also, the CM is required to do a master schedule. I think that the initial schedule should be done by the architect, and I'm very surprised that the architect is not doing a schedule. Same thing with the cost estimate. I think we need an organizational chart of the AE team. We need to know who they are, what their capabilities are. We need resumes. And we need to know, are there cost estimators on that team, or is the CM going to be doing cost estimating? That is not in the RFP. So I have a comment to make on the policies thing. I can save that for later if you want me to. And should I save that for later?
No, I think you can do it.
Okay.
We'll give you another
So
comment.
The bottom line to that
Period.
is that in your policies, there's a statement that I have a real concern about. It says, this is addressed to you, and it's recommended by the New Jersey School Boards Association. It says, you will not take any private action that will compromise the board. And, I think, first of all, your major goal is the public interest. The board is an entity. It's not the bottom line. You're there to support the public interest. So I'm very concerned about that statement, requiring you to only be concerned about the board. Second of all, the word private action is extremely broad. Just having a conversation with you out in the hallway could be deemed a private action. We had the example of the woman with the alarm that was going off, and she wanted to say to one of the board members, can you do something about that alarm? And that's considered to be a private action, that a board member might actually initiate a complaint in some way. I think this needs to be much more clarified as to what a private action is. And also, the word not is in there. It doesn't say you should avoid, it says you should not take any private action. And I think that's a very intimidating kind of policy. And so I think you need to be very concerned about policies that come from the Board Association, School Boards Association, that puts you in a situation where you might be afraid to talk to anybody because it could be a violation of the policies.
Thank you, Kip. And since we have our board counsel sitting right here, Frank, would you say a word to that? Yeah.
I'm sorry. Ma'am, that language is taken right out of statute, and it is part of the required code of ethics for board members. So the board can't take that out of that policy. It has to be in there exactly as written. That's the exact words.
I would like to see the statute, quite frankly, because I think it is a problem, and I'm just
That gentleman
concerned.
sitting back there in the with the green shirt may actually have a copy. He's a representative from New Jersey School Boards Association. He probably has a copy with him.
All right, thank you. And
You're welcome.
I think, too, then, there is some clarification to interpret that particular policy so that people are not stymied from communication with the public. I think that's well worth doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Kip. Mr. Montgomery? We'll wait.
Rod Montgomery from William Patterson Court, curmudgeon taxpayer. Stand up to bullying in all its forms. Does that include online mobs stimulated by Twitter? Do you teach anything about the psychopathologies associated with Twitter? Do you tolerate students using Twitter? Should you? The Princeton High School Program of Studies night, as I understand it, was the 16th of January, just passed. I don't know what program of studies was discussed that night. The program of studies on the website is clearly titled Draft 2018 to 2019, and clearly has exactly none of the changes that were presented to the Student Achievement Committee on the 14th of December 2018. Whatever the program of studies is, now that the sign-up process has started, it's clearly too late for the board to exercise any influence over the policy on taking free periods, which I invited in an email, invited the board to contemplate what kind of influence it might attempt to exert in light of the constraints on the board's authority presented by Captain Adams in his very interesting training session. I also noted in the Student Achievement Committee presentation that the social studies department work on advanced placement versus advanced topics courses has apparently sunk without a bubble. There was not even a discussion of whether advanced placement might be replaced by advanced topics. I don't understand, but I think the board needs to understand where in the program budget cycle decisions are made about allocating resources both between courses within a department and between departments. What I've observed the board to do over the past few years is to stuff in more and more stuff, and then when money comes up short, wail, gnash teeth, rend garments, and cut with meat axes to fit within the available dollars. Thank you for your attention, and thank you for your hard work on behalf of Princeton students.
Thank you, Mr. Montgomery. I think now we're going to move through policies, and we had several up for first read, but there's no action required, so we go through that. On the second reading, yes, 7,000. Do you want to
Construction,
speak to that,
remodeling,
Greg?
and
Yep.
renovation policies. Not for first read.
Okay, just very, very brief context. This is the set of policies, and as we've been talking about, we are transitioning to a new set of policy, a new policy manual that NJSBA has been working with us on. It's been a year-long process, and so this section here, the 7,000s, deal with facilities. We're asking the board to consider them on first reading. What the policy committee, the old one, decided before we ended for the year was that we try to push things along. So we have this set of policies around facilities that we thought would be really, really important as we start the process that our members of the public have been talking about in terms of going forward. I invite the board to take a quick look at this. This goes back to the new policy committee before second reading. So any thoughts from all board members, please bring it to the policy committee, which will take it up on its first meeting. But we are doing this in order to continue to move forward on the policy manual.
So,
Thanks.
Greg, you did a leapfrog because we were on the 4,000s and you went to 7,000 because of the referendum.
Yes, exactly.
I got it. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. So the next item is J2, second reading of policies involving instructional and support personnel. Can I have a motion for that? Bill, second? Brian? Do we want to have any discussion on those?
And very briefly, the old board had heard all these on first reading. There are 13 policies here from the 4,000 series. It's a very, very long section of our policy manual. So this is, again, the work that was done by the old policy committee that was looked at by the old board, and this is for second reading.
Thank you.
I just want to thank Lou for
Yeah.
having sat with us, the former policy committee, and helped us to read through a lot of really dense and
dry,
complicated policy and making it seem really understandable. So thank you, Lou. We'll miss you.
All right. Is there any other discussion? Ready for a vote? Show of hands. Oh, Brian?
I guess it's just a question. If we have comments on the policies, should we be delivering them now or to the committee?
When we vote on the second reading, we're actually approving the policies. So if you have comments.
Sure. I guess I have.
Yeah.
I'll just, one comment on 4138.2, private tutoring. So if I understand correctly, a teacher cannot tutor one of their students or a student they have recommended might be tutored, but can the teacher recommend another teacher to do the tutoring? Is that something that the policy contemplates?
Do you want to speak to that?
I think the policy, I don't have it up in front of me too.
Yeah, I do.
41.
It's relating to a teacher can't teach on the school district and make money. Teachers are not
On school district
tutor
time.
students for pay during regular working hours on school premise. That's what the intent is. So if they're going to, if you're going to tutor me, you're my teacher, you could tutor me at my house, you could tutor me at the library.
No.
No, they can't. You can't tutor your own student.
Never mind. I don't know what I'm
Two
talking
things.
about.
One, you can't tutor your own student. Secondly, no teacher can tutor during school hours.
Yeah, okay.
Or on school property.
Or on school property.
But I don't.
So I guess my question is, if I was a math teacher and had a student who was interested in, or their family was interested in some tutoring, I know I can't tutor that person, but if I thought that Evelyn would be a perfect fit to do that tutoring, am I as a teacher allowed to make a referral or recommendation of a fellow teacher?
Doesn't speak
to
that.
You could, and
okay, so we're silent on that topic.
yes.
Okay, which we can discuss
We may want
in the
to,
future.
yes.
Does tutoring, is tutoring also lessons, such as arts lessons? is that tutoring as well?
I would think so, yeah.
That's what I mean, music and performing arts.
so, yeah.
Okay. So the conflict of interest section, so a teacher may not tutor anyone in their class or upon whose evaluation or assessment they may be called upon to pass. Is that currently or in the future? I think just something to consider. If it is if this is a student you may have in your math class, I mean, so it doesn't say in the future, but Brian's example, if he suggests that the student goes to another teacher in the building.
Well, written for the future and the present, may be called upon to pass, could be today until they graduate.
So the idea is Evelyn may tutor, or teacher A may tutor until the child becomes a member of their class.
I think if they could become a member of their class,
Then they are not to tutor.
that they may be called upon to pass.
It seemed to be inappropriate.
Okay.
Strict reading, I guess.
I didn't mean to complicate things. I just
No, it's a good question.
thought it was, might be part of the discussion.
Okay. With no further discussion, can I ask for a show of hands in favor of the adopting of the 4,000 series? Unanimous. Okay, it's passed. Item J3, the bylaw 9110, number and members and term of office. Can I have a motion for discussion? Bill? Second? Dan? I think, Frank, do you want to speak to this one? This is now we're on 9-1.
This is 9110.
9110, and maybe you can talk to all three of these at once, and then we can.
I would like a clarification on that policy, if I may, that, as we discussed earlier, that an ad hoc committee a negotiating committee would not be considered, I'm sorry, that a negotiating committee would not be considered an ad hoc committee, and that we would consider a negotiating committee at another time.
Are we on, so no.
I don't think that's 911.
That's not 9110, not, but we'll get to that, but this one is just the number of members and term of office.
In Cranberry.
Yeah, 9110 adds language reflecting the change in the statute, NJSA 18A:38-8.1, which was amended effective July 31, 2017. Your policy was never amended after that statute was changed to reflect, just in general, what the sending district representative could vote on. Policy number 9325 is the policy that lists out the provisions of NJSA 18A:38-8.1 so that you can see the items that the sending representative was authorized by law to vote upon effective July 31, 2117. So both of those policies, which are actually your bylaws in terms of how you operate as a board, are being amended to reflect the statutory changes that have been in place for over a year now. The policies were never changed, and they need to be changed to be in compliance with the statute.
But they also, and this is what I think is interesting, they also, I think it's 9325 allow 5 people to be on a committee because 6 is a quorum. So like facilities today, we had 5 people there as we did in finance. Personally, I think it's great that we have more people there. Bless you if you have the time to be there for 4 hours, right? So I like that we can have 5 people on a committee and it's still not a quorum.
And if we're just speaking about these generally, Dan, your question on committees, there is no reference in our committees to the negotiating committee. It's silent. So that would technically be an ad hoc, given our current structure. It's not a standing committee. So we can always come back and change that should we as a board decide that that's something we want to do.
So if we're going to have 5 on a committee, do we need to go back and reassign our committees? Because we have all these alternates, or alternates now going. I think we have to discuss what that means.
Yeah, I think we can discuss that with committee chairs and the committees, however each committee wants to.
Oh, so we're not going to have a process that goes over all committees? Like, I can say, oh, I just want 4, and Bill can say, oh, no, I want 5? How does an alternate work? Like, do we need a minimum of 4?
It's just up to 5.
Yes, it's up to 5.
I understand, but we have alternates, so I'm just trying to understand, does the alternate just go if they want to go?
Well, I think even, I've already spoken with Betsy, for example, about the student achievement, where there's a desire to have as many people involved as possible. So the alternates could then become regular committee members, and we could even designate another alternate. In personnel, you may say, well, we don't necessarily need, and if no one on the board, I mean, you're the one who's running that committee, if you think you only need 4 and you want an alternate, I don't know if anyone would object. I think we can have a discussion about that. I certainly don't have a particular view.
Well, that's what I'm asking, because before it was all committees had 4.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I'm asking.
Now we can have up to 5 if we want. So I think if there's committees where they want to make the alternate a permanent member and have another alternate, they can. Otherwise, we can just continue.
Okay. All right. I also have, okay. I didn't know if we're talking now about 9130. Okay, all right. So, oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was going to ask about 913.
Okay.
Should we,
as to public members.
should we vote on them and make our way through? And so if there's no, is there any further comment on 9110? No. If none, then can we have a show of hands for approval?
I'm sorry, I did have a question.
Yeah. You do have a question. Okay.